Hey, what's good, everybody? It's your boy Slim Paco. And hey, ladies and gentlemen, we finally made it. The NFL season is right around the corner. So, it's time for my annual duty as a sports content creator to drop my predictions videos. Let's hope these are a little more accurate than last year. Enough talk about it. Let's get into the video. This year we're going to start with the AFC East. And since we're going alphabetical order, that means first up is the Buffalo Bills. Well, the biggest problem with analyzing the Bills going into the 2024 season is that there's so much that's changed from last year on both sides of the ball. The team is almost unrecognizable. Including the Matt Milano injury, there are two questions that need to be answered. Is Josh Allen enough to carry the offense? Will the secondary be able to withstand without Hyde and Poyer? I'm trying not to let my biases come out, but I think they'll be fine on both sides. And no matter what people say about Josh Allen, calling him overrated or saying that he throws too many picks or whatever, he's got this. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir will do a great job as the wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 1. And the addition of MVS and Curtis Samuel, I mean, they're both going to start the season on the injury list, but it'll wait to see what kind of profit they'll yield for the team. I'm hopeful. Von Miller will be healthy this season, and hopefully he'll be able to get back to a little bit of the form we saw a couple years ago for him. We did see flashes of that toward the end of the season. Of course, Terrell Bernard will be back as well as linebacker. The secondary is going to look like Cole Bishop, Taylor Rapp, Khair Elam, Rasul Douglas. The question for those fours, can they fill the void left behind by Tre'Davious, Micah Hyde, and Jordan Poyer? Like I said, I think they'll be fine. Looking forward to another solid season for the Bills, another AFC East title, and another playoff appearance. Hopefully, for my sake, this is the year that ends with Josh lifting the Lombardi. Next up, we have the Dolphins of Miami. Last season was a historic one for the club, as they clearly had one of, if not the best offenses in the NFL, until they hit the hammer stretch. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Miami Dolphins folded once again. The question this year will be if they can repeat the success of last season and sustain it this time around. Tua got paid, which is great for him, although the size of his contract will hamper the Dolphins in the future. And this year we'll see the return of a healthy Devon Achane, Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb. Okay, maybe not Chubb. Tyreek Hill is trash talking Noah Lyles, which every sports fan in the world should love to see. And we know the speed isn't just going to be a drug in Miami this year between him and Jalen Waddle. Should be another fun season in South Beach for Fins Nation. We'll see if they can keep up the good vibes when the weather ain't so good. Another new era begins in New England as the team exits the Belichick-Patriots way eon into the Jared Mayo timeline, spearheaded by new rookie quarterback Drake May. Though most believe he won't be the QB1 right out the gate with Jacoby Brissett being named the starter anyway, I fully expect him to take over from Brissett by week 3 or 4. Other than that, sorry, Boston. But the Patriots are going to be trash again this year. Unlike Houston last season, the Patriots didn't really make any moves in the offseason that will benefit the team, even moving on from guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and Matthew Judon towards the end of the preseason. However, Christian Gonzalez coming back from injury will be a help to the solid secondary. The Patriots will still be a force on the defense. The offense will be their biggest hamper, and that's why I think it'll be another rebuilding season in Foxborough. Rounding off the AFC East, we got the New York Jets. There's nothing better to me as a Bills fan personally than laughing at the joke of a franchise that is the New York Jets. But I gotta try my best to be non-biased today. Last season, the Jets crashed and burned like the Twin Towers right out of the gate following the injury to Aaron Rodgers. And Zach Wilson couldn't carry the rest of the wreckage. However, the Jets finished 7-10, which I think most people forget, even without Rodgers at the helm. I think it's safe to say that if Rodgers had played, they might have finished with an inverse record. But these are the Jets, so probably not. Anyways, in 2024, the big question for the Jets will be how the team meshes with Rodgers as QB. Breece Hall will do his thing in the backfield, but the Jets don't really have any receivers outside of Garrett Wilson. We'll see what the Jets can do to make improvements from last year and make the playoffs for the first time in almost 15 seasons. Like I said, their defense is going to be great again. But let's be real. If you believe in the Jets this season, well, you might want to check out BetterHelp. You need a therapist, my guy. Moving on, we got the AFC West, and first up is the Denver Broncos. So the Broncos are coming off some of the most disappointing seasons, like statistically speaking, in their franchise's history. Especially that there was so much expectation. But they're finally exiting the Russell Wilson experiment, which was definitely one of the most disastrously expensive signings since Washington whiffed on Albert Haynesworth almost 20 years ago. But if the preseason is any indication, things seem to be looking up for Denver. I mean, Bo Nix absolutely balled out in his 3 weeks of work, winning the starting QB job over Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham, though admittedly that's not something that should have been very difficult. He'll miss the receiving security blankets of Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick, but he still has Cortland Sutton, so perhaps Bo Nix could have a CJ Stroud-like breakout season for the Broncos. Another strength for Denver should be their defense, which was a top 15 unit last year. Not quite the Orange Crush or the no-fly zone, but a squad that should be able to keep Denver in many games. Judging by the Broncos' schedule, they could really make some noise, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're in playoff conversations late into the season. I mean, really, who do they even have to deal with in the AFC West? The Raiders? The Chargers? Oh yeah, those guys. Back-to-back Super Bowl champs. I could pretty much sum up the Chiefs with that statement alone. However, it's not as simple as that, is it? The Chiefs had a pretty bad regular season last year by their standards, and it was Mahomes' worst statistical season since entering the league. But here's the thing that separates KC from the Bills and the Ravens and the Niners. Execution. They managed to execute when it mattered the most. So the biggest question mark for the Chiefs this season are two. Wide receiver play and the secondary without L'Jarius Sneed. Well, they solved the first problem by drafting the speedster Xavier Worthy out of Texas, and him and Hollywood Brown should be a much more reliable targeting crew for Mahomes over Kadarius Toney and MVS. As for the secondary, the Chiefs are hoping that Jaden Watson or Eric Scott Jr. will be able to step up and fill the void left behind by Sneed, although Trent McDuffie will, he'll hold it down on his end. Altogether, though, like I mentioned earlier, it's the Chiefs with Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones. And we'll see if guys like Isaiah Pacheco, George Karlaftis, and, as I mentioned, Trent McDuffie can continue their ascension to elite players in the NFL. Oh, and they just made Creed Humphrey the highest paid center in the league. Very nice. Screw the Chiefs. This season for the Raiders begins and ends with the head coach, Antonio Pierce. It's been reported that Mark Davis might not have wanted to keep Pierce, but pressure from the players, namely Max Crosby, forced his hand. So it's up to Pierce to guide this team to some kind of improvement from 2023. Fortunately, that's going to be easier said than done. This is probably going to be more of a rebuilding year than most Raiders fans would like to admit. No more Josh Jacobs since he left for Green Bay, but as always, the Raiders will be built from defense up. Adding Christian Wilkins to a line that already includes game records such as Crosby, linebackers like Diablo and Spillane will be crucial to helping the D maintain. Offensively, there are major issues, from QB to wide receivers to the O-line. Gardner Minshew is built in to be the signal caller, but he's definitely just a bridge for a future quarterback or until Aiden O'Connell is a little less green. Devontae Adams doesn't want to be in Vegas anymore based on the receiver thing from Netflix. I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved by the trade deadline. Brock Bowers will be an absolute stud at the tight end, but Minshew really isn't the man to get him the ball. So we'll probably have to wait and see until the Raiders draft a QB next year or the year after to see how he really fits with the silver and black. I don't have high hopes for the Raiders this year, especially how competitive the AFC West should be. Call it a wash. Personally, I refuse to call this team an LA-based franchise, especially since it's been such a rocky start for the team since relocation. However, I don't think anyone would be surprised if this is the year everything finally started to click for the Chargers. They managed to convince Jim Harbaugh to leave Michigan in an attempt to straighten the ship, because things can't possibly be worse than they were under Brandon Staley, right? Right? Well, he's definitely going to try. First thing Harbaugh did was say goodbye to Austin Eckler, Will Clapp, and Keenan Allen, and replaced them with J.K. Dobbins, Joe Alt, and Ladd McConkey. Next up is straightening the defense, which was already kind of solid last season, except for that last Raiders game. We don't talk about that one. Behind Khalil Mack's 17 sacks and Joey Bosa's resurgence, even through injury. Looking for improvement from Asante Samuel Jr. and hoping that investing in guys like Poona Ford and Morgan Fox will pay off. Of course, the real piece of the puzzle that needs to reach its full potential is Justin Herbert. Now, we've been calling Herbert a near elite quarterback for years now. And I really hope this is the season. I really think this will be the season that he finally puts it all together for himself as well. So we really need to see that from him. Because first up in the AFC North, we have the Baltimore Ravens. I think the best way to sum up the Ravens last season would be to say so close, yet so far. In 2023, the Baltimore Ravens had their best season since the Super Bowl run back in 2012. And advanced all the way to the AFC Championship game, where they fell in unceremonious fashion to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, for all intents and purposes, the Ravens should have won the game, but for some reason they decided to divert away from what had carried them to that point in the season, the run game. So Baltimore decided to do something about that, and they made a really, really big move. Enter stage left, the Raven killer himself, King Derrick Henry. Even though he's 30 years old now, Henry is still a force to be reckoned with on the gridiron. This signing might just make Ravens fans forget about losing Patrick Queen to the Steelers. In addition, Baltimore still has the league MVP, Lamar Jackson. He's been slimming down, trying to get back to his speed demon mode, but the real question will be whether or not he can carry his style of play over to the preseason. That's been Baltimore's Achilles heel the last few years. I personally believe the Ravens will be fine in 2024 though. Even with Joe Burrow coming back to the Bengals, they shouldn't have anything to worry about. The defense is still tough as nails, even without Queen, with Roquan Smith, Kyle Van Noy, and Marlon Humphrey roaming the field. As long as Zay Flowers can hold on to the freaking ball this year, I don't expect much of a fall off from the Ravens in 2024. I know Bengals fans can't wait until their home opener, when number 9 runs out of that stupid orange and striped blow-up helmet for the first time in almost a year. Now, will number 1 be joining him? At the time of recording, that remains to be seen. Regardless, 2024 should be a resurgence in Cincinnati, even without the services of Joe Mixon and DJ Reader and Tyler Boyd. Remember, the team finished 9-8 under Jake Browning. The return of Shiesty should make things that much better. The Bengals secondary should also be much improved by signings like Geno Stone and Von Bell. And the Bengals also decided to beef up their always struggling O-line with Trent Williams, who'll be great if he can stay healthy for once. Same for Joe. The Bengals have made the playoffs every year he's played more than 14 games. If he doesn't, well, you get what happened last season. Of course, the big concern is whether or not Jamar Chase will be playing to begin the season. So far, it doesn't seem that way, but if there are any updates, I'll include them in the video, maybe in a text web or something. All in all, the Bengals are going to be back to normal this season. Last season, the Browns did something that seemed impossible after Deshaun Watson got hurt and made the playoffs after calling the elite QB Joe Flacco off the couch. Well, that was 2023. 2024 is going to be the Deshaun Watson massage experience for the whole Browns fan base, which means that Cleveland is screwed. Well, maybe. They did get Jerry Jeudy from the Browns, so that's definitely a positive. Myles Garrett will be headhunting again, and the Browns might have the most underrated defense in the NFL, reinforcing an already dominant unit with Devin Bush and Quentin Jefferson. No Nick Chubb, at least to begin the season, and really, when he gets back, what kind of Nick Chubb are we going to get? Remains to be seen. Last year was really a perfect storm for Cleveland. I don't see them having the same kind of success as they did, but who knows? Nobody believed in them last year, they proved everybody wrong. Could the Browns do it again? Death, taxes, and the Steelers somehow finishing with a record above 500, and last year at least, somehow making the playoffs. How? No clue. Tom Grossi probably explained it best. The Steelers have probably sold their souls to a blood demon in exchange for mediocre seasons and playoff appearances. On the flip side, no Super Bowls or deep playoff runs. And in 2024, it'll probably be more of the same, not worse. The biggest change from last year for the Steelers might not be for the best. Russell Wilson comes over from Denver to save the day? Who knows? Really, Wilson had a pretty good statistical season last year, but made poor decisions in key situations that cost the Broncos wins. And of course, he's been memed to death in the last couple years, which hasn't helped fan perception at all. But don't forget, he's still a future Hall of Fame QB, and this is a big year for him to prove that he's still got it. Because if he doesn't, Justin Fields is waiting in the wings, ready to strike. Aside from the QB drama, the Steelers didn't have much turnover from last season. They still have George Pickens and TJ Watt, who will do their thing on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball, respectively. The main problem with the Steelers' defense is that it's just TJ Watt. Oh, Joey Porter Jr. is a solid corner and should get better with time. But for every defense, it starts with the front five, and the Steelers don't have that great a front five right now outside of TJ. Remember, Aaron Donald was always great with the Rams, even back in St. Louis. But it wasn't until they added a Von Miller and a Leonard Floyd that the Rams D was able to power the team to a Super Bowl championship. Until the Steelers can get Watt some help on the line, it will remain to be great, but the Steelers themselves will remain mediocre. It's going to be another one of those years in Pittsburgh where the team is just enough to finish over 500, but doesn't do anything come January if they even make it there in the first place. Last season, I was one of the few people on the planet who successfully predicted the Houston Texans' resurgence. Though admittedly, I did have my doubts and never could have seen them winning the AFC South like they did. Behind CJ Stroud and a bend-don't-break defense, the Texans shocked everyone by not only making the postseason, but also winning their wildcard game over the Cleveland Browns. And all the Texans did this year was follow that old college football quote, "We don't rebuild, we reload." By somehow managing to hold on to offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, picking up Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, and Daniel Hunter, the Texans showed the world that they weren't satisfied with just being a one-year wonder like the Jags are every half-decade or so. They want to be here to stay for real. Now the question everyone has for the Texans centers around Stroud. Can he keep up the pace he established last season? Personally, I think he'll only exceed what he did last year, and that by the time the season is over, CJ's name will be coming up in MVP talk. Now, don't forget the Texans have a former Pro Bowl D lineman as their head coach in DeMeco Ryan. And I think he'll fire up that defense behind Will Anderson, who I think could also become one of the better defensive players in the league by the time the season is over. Expect more of the same from the Texans this year. It's going to be a good year for the best team in the Lone Star State. Oh, and did I mention that Nico Collins and Tank Dell will be back? Whew! It's going to be a task trying to stop Houston. The Colts are, admittedly, a hard team to read. Last year, they fought with Houston all the way to Week 18 for the AFC South title, and that was behind Gardner Minshew at the QB position. This year sees the return of Anthony Richardson, who was out most of 2023 after suffering a shoulder injury in Week 5. In the 4 games he played well, and the Colts have a lot of their hope riding on him going into 24. As for the rest of the team, well, suffice it to say that Indianapolis did what they had to do in the offseason, at least at the draft. They selected Latu and A.D. Mitchell to bolster both sides of the ball. That creates a deadly receiving corps for the Colts. Mitchell, Alex Pierce, and Michael Pittman will definitely be a hand for the defense. Blair Franklin will take the lead for the defense once again, after the Colts signed him to a 3-year extension back in March. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about Indy. We'll have to wait and see if they can keep pace with the Texans this year. They were a drought pass away from possibly winning the AFC South last season. As long as nobody has Butterfingers in 2024, it could be a race to the finish. And Indianapolis is a city that knows all about races and how to win them. The Jags may have been the most disappointing team in the NFL last season. Even though there were a number of factors that went into that, Jacksonville started the season 8-3 and finished 9-8, basically an inverse of their 22 season. A good share of that collapse is blamed on the ankle injuries sustained by Trevor Lawrence, which severely limited his playing ability throughout the end of the year. Now healthy, Travis has proved that 22 is the more normal way for him to play, and that 2023 was simply a fluke. We'll have to cut down on the turnovers, but he should have it a little bit easier in the passing game. No Calvin Ridley this season, but Eric Ebron, Christian Kirk, and the newly acquired Gabe Davis give him plenty of options. And Travis Etienne is a dual threat out the backfield to take it the distance or catch and run like Marshall Faulk back in the day. Turning to the defense, it's definitely not Saxonville anymore, but Josh Hines-Allen leads a competent unit. They have to find a way to complement the offense though, because that was a big problem last year. When the offense would struggle, the defense couldn't pick them up. And vice versa. The Jags are one of my favorite teams, and when they do well, I think it's better for the NFL in general. Oh yeah, and they're bringing back the late 90s and early aughts teal jerseys as a throwback. Can't wait to see those. They'll also look a lot better on a team that's winning though. They're the most mysterious team in the AFC South and maybe the most mysterious in the NFL. Things will look a lot different in Nashville as the Titans are going without Derrick Henry for the first season since 2016. This means a lot more focus and responsibility will be put on the young yet wide shoulders of Will Levis. Levis showed that he can hang in the NFL with the big boys last season, with key performances against the Falcons, Dolphins, and the Jags at the end of the year. He'll have the receiving report of We'll have the receiving support of DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, and the O-line will be strengthened behind rookie tackle J.C. Latham. The Titans defense also has a big pickup by trading for L'Jarius Sneed. And don't forget about Jeffrey Simmons. The two-time All-Pro and Pro Bowler returns from injury and will certainly be a game wrecker on the D-line. As I mentioned earlier, the Titans are a mysterious team. Under new head coach Brian Callahan, we'll see what Tennessee can do to shake up the AFC playoff race. It'll likely be another rebuilding year in the Music City, but as Houston showed us last season, anything is possible! Well, that's the video. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed it. So now, let's do the playoff seeding for these teams and how I think the playoffs are going to look by the time we get to January. So number 1, we got the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills will finish with the best record in the AFC at 12-5. The Chiefs will be the second best team with the same record, 12-5, but the Bills will have the tiebreaker over them because the Bills usually beat them in the regular season. We'll have the Texans at 11-6 as the 3 seed, the Bengals at 11-6 as the 4 seed, and the wildcard teams are going to be the Ravens, the Dolphins, and the Broncos. Who knows if that's how accurate that's going to be come January, but we'll see. Y'all can do me a huge favor and like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell, and share with your family and friends. Thanks for me, and your boy Slim Paco. Catch y'all in the next video. Later, go Bills!